What the heck is Astrobot?
It's a PS5 game.
When the PlayStation 5 was released, it had a lack of launch titles to play, just like every other new console that comes out these days. So Sony, with their fancy new DualSense controller, hired a development team named Team Asobi to come in and make a tech demo that utilized the full capabilities of this controller's haptic feedback, built-in speaker, and motion controls. And the result of this collaboration ended up becoming a platforming demo titled Astro's Playroom, with the main character being the new mascot for the PS5, a robot named Astro. The tech demo takes place inside of the PS5, with the levels being located inside the 4 parts of the PS5's inner hardware, and a final boss fight against the T-Rex in the CPU chamber. This tech demo impressed a lot of gamers because of its polish, its nostalgic references to old PlayStation hardware and older franchises, and its incredibly fun and lighthearted gameplay. It was a unique experience that introduced the player to their brand new console. But one interesting talking point that everyone was discussing was how this tech demo compares to Nintendo's platforming titles. And it makes sense. Nintendo absolutely dominates the platforming genre, with highly polished titles that never fail to succeed. So most new platforming games borrow design from them. So Sony, trying their luck once again for the first time since the good old days, made a platformer utilizing motion control mechanics where you're running around collecting coins, fighting enemies, and exploring extremely immersive environments. So of course they're gonna get compared to the big Italian man. And hey, you know, Nintendo doesn't own the tropes of the platforming genre. You can't patent aspects of game design and sue other companies for using specific game mechanics. That'd be crazy! Are they for real? Are they even allowed to do that? But seriously, there's no actual proof that Astrobot copied Nintendo, right? After the success of Astro's Playroom, Sony gave Team Asobi the go-ahead to make a full-fledged platforming game. Immediately, people started crowning Astrobot with the title of Super Mario Galaxy 3, and it's extremely clear why. The core of the entire game is flying around in your spaceship to different planets from different galaxies to complete unique linear levels. With that sentence alone, I could be describing Mario Galaxy 2 or Astrobot and you wouldn't even be able to tell. Not to mention, the Wii Remote had motion controls and an onboard speaker for Super Mario Galaxy 14 years before Sony did it. The DualSense controller does enhance that design by putting these features in a comfortable controller that gamers are used to and adding their haptic feedback design, but the similarities don't end with the controller. The deeper you look into Astrobot, the more you start to realize just how many things are borrowed straight from more Nintendo IPs than just Mario. The game starts out with our PS5 spaceship flying through space when we run into a giant UFO. This UFO turns out to be the home of this big green alien, our main villain of the game. He immediately rips open our PS5 and steals the CPU straight from the ship. So basically, Bowser, aka Big Green Guy, stealing Peach, aka the CPU. Then he destroys the PS5, sending robots and the other 5 PS5 parts sailing off into space with the broken hull of the PS5 crash landing on a desert planet. This turns out to be our hub world, where we will return to after saving robots and recovering PS5 ship parts. Here we find this fallen satellite dish who we save and it blasts off into space after scanning something. So we hop on our PS5 controller spacecraft and cruise back into the stars. We get our first look at the world map here, and it contains a bunch of galaxies. Entering the galaxies brings us to a map of levels that kind of are organized in a solar system type situation. And it looks strikingly similar to Super Mario Galaxy's original level select screens, with even these boss levels being locked behind needing to save a certain number of bots, just like how you needed to have a certain amount of stars to open up levels in Galaxy. Very interesting, Sony. You better be careful. Nintendo might have a patent on the entire concept of solar systems. The game itself is incredibly gorgeous graphically. It has this amazingly satisfying universe to interact with, due to every footstep and action producing some kind of haptic feedback or audio reaction through the controller. The physics are impressive too. So many levels make use of crazy amounts of loose objects that act independently based on their own physics, without the game dropping a single frame. The environments are so diverse and filled with incredible detail, from all the stuff you platform on to even the environments off in the distance. You can totally tell that Team Asobi made this game with a lot of love and care. It really feels like a super polished final product. Just like something Nintendo would make. The game itself has pretty basic controls and movement options for Astro. You have one run speed to move around, one button to perform a basic jump, but if you press it again and hold it, Astro will shoot lasers out of his feet and hover, giving you some extra height and horizontal distance. For combat, you've got your basic punches, but then if you punch in midair, Astro will do a 360 spin attack. Nah, that's straight out of Galaxy. They're not even hiding it anymore with that one. Wait, but also Crash Bandicoot could do that long before Mario could.
911, what's your emergency?
Hi, I'd like to report a company called Nintendo for stealing game mechanics.
You can also do a charged attack on the ground that spins Astro around for a couple seconds while throwing punches. But that's pretty much it for your basic movement kit. But while Astro's control options may be limited, the world is designed extremely intelligently for you to be able to interact with it using your limited moveset. Just take this guy for example. He's filled with electricity, making punching him kill you. So instead what you gotta do is hover over him with the laser booth to explode him with the lasers. And check out this mechanic. The charged attack is used to spin these blue flower wheels that change the environment around Astro. And sometimes, if you see an X on the ground, the charged attack can be used to drill into the dirt and open up secret underground areas. Mario does the same thing to screw and valves and screw screws.
Objection, Your Honor. Clearly those are two completely different things, okay?
There's even a whole group of side levels that make use of the laser boots to destroy the ground out from under you, and if you completely destroy all the floor in a circle around an area, everything in the middle falls down. This game is filled to the brim with amazing level design elements that complement the limited movement mechanics. Not to mention there's plenty of level-specific items for Astro to use that we'll get to later on. So let's talk level design. What are the levels like? Well, it's pretty much exclusively linear 3D environments. It feels almost exactly like a mixture of both Galaxy 1 and 2's level design. Not in terms of look or structure, but just in terms of base level concept. I mean, the way you enter a level is by flying in on the controller ship and landing into the beginning of the level. Kinda just like how Mario flies in after being launched in a star launcher. But hey, I mean, make of that what you will. But me personally, I'm gonna let this one slide. But I'm just saying. But what I can't deny is that flying on this controller ship reminds me a little bit of Star Fox. Flying into the first level, the Sky Garden, the collectibles in this game are in the form of puzzle pieces and robots that will be hiding throughout the levels. You're gonna need to collect a certain amount of robots to progress, so keep an eye out for these pesky guys. It sort of reminds me of the Electoons from Rayman, where the robots are in peril and you're saving them from danger in order to progress. A lot of these robots are dressed up in costumes of different characters from other PlayStation IPs, which is honestly really fun when you come across a beloved character from your childhood. Then when you finish the level, all the robots are sent back to the hub world where they will now live surrounding the PS5 and helping you complete tasks that require a lot of robots. I wonder where they got that idea from. This is how you're going to progress, because after completing each world, more satellites will crash land on the planet that are gate-kept by having enough robots to build a human rope swing or something to get across a gap and reach a satellite. Weird, I can't help but think I've seen this before. The puzzle pieces could be akin to the Jiggies from Banjo-Kazooie, but realistically, they're kinda just like the big coins in 2D Mario games. There are usually 3 in each level, and they're completely optional towards actually completing the base game. They instead serve the purpose of unlocking fun things in the homeworld, like the Gacha Lab, the Dual Speeder Garage, the Safari Park, and the Changing Room. Which, by the way, the Gacha Lab is straight up ripped from Melee. Like, come on now, you're trading in coins for in-game collectibles that are just references to your other IPs. It's straight up the trophy system. Okay, look, I've totally been memeing with the whole Nintendo bit, but obviously, I'm on the side of Sony here. Fuck Nintendo. Astrobot can steal whatever they want. Nintendo shouldn't be able to forbid other developers from taking inspiration from their games. To be fair to them, some of these concepts are straight up yoinked with little to no twist. But to play devil's advocate again, capsule machines are just real things that exist in real life, so who knows? Maybe it wasn't stolen from Nintendo at all. It's a pretty cool feature though, because you'll unlock items that the characters use in their games, and then in the hub world, the robots will be given the item and you can watch them interact with their new toys instead of just standing there in costume. The Dual Speeder Garage lets you customize your controller ship with paint jobs that you can collect from the gacha machine. The Changing Room lets you change Astro's appearance with outfits that you also get from the gacha machine. And the Safari Park just acts as a little zoo that slowly gets filled up on its own with animals that you'll find as you complete more levels. So if you're going for 100% completion, collect as many coins as you can while you play, so that you're not stuck coin farming like I was in order to empty out the gacha machine. On the topic of 100%, if you miss a collectible on your first run through of a level, the game has a unique way of giving you a hint to help you find what you missed. Upon re-entering a level you've already beat, a birdhouse will now appear at the beginning of the level with a birdie offering his services for coins. Paying for the bird, he will fly with you as you play through the level again, and start pinging once you're close to any collectible. Genuinely a super helpful feature that kept me immersed in the game instead of the alternative, where I look around frustrated before inevitably looking up the location of the collectible on Google. There are 300 robots and 120 puzzle pieces in total, and collecting them all results in a final challenge level at the end of the game, similar to Grandmaster Galaxy from Super Mario Galaxy 2. Some levels even have this extra galaxy symbol on them showing an extra third collectible. this being secret exits. Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo was the king of this, hiding secret exits which unlocked hidden paths to new levels, switches that added blocks in previous levels, and of course, Star Road levels. Astrobot's secret exits take you to a sort of Star Road galaxy called the Lost Galaxy. These levels aren't super jacked up Star Road difficult levels, but more so just some cool smaller extra levels with more robots and puzzle pieces to find. So keep an eye out for any hidden paths when you see this symbol before entering a level. But enough about the collectibles, let's get back to talking about the actual gameplay. Hold up, they got the goddamn bouncy water skimmers? They stole that from Sunshine! I honestly get heavy Spyro vibes from this game's music, and there's still that retro Sony 3D platformer feel to this game while weaving in Nintendo's polish, unique quirks, and level design elements. There are little robot animals living throughout the world that make the levels feel like actual ecosystems that existed here before Astro showed up. There's so many charming little areas that some lucky robots have gotten the privilege to take refuge at while waiting to be rescued. Like, some of these guys aren't even in danger. They genuinely look like they'd have more fun stuck here than being rescued. But to backtrack a bit here, the first level we get our first item for Astro to wield. This octopus backpack thing? By pressing right trigger, Astro will inflate to become a big balloon and fly up into the air, floating around for a while before deflating back down. You can also hold right trigger again to self-deflate and return to the ground yourself. This made this tower section climb all about gaining rapid height with your balloon body to ascend to the finish. So, we've got sort of a combination of two Mario things here. First of all, Mario was seen freaking his shit with self-inflation many years ago in Super Mario World with the P-Balloon power-up. But that power-up functioned very differently from this Astrobot version. Mario would just become a floating balloon, and when you tap the A button, you could get a height increase over and over again. And by pressing B over and over again, Mario would go back down, making the flight path fully controllable. Astrobot's balloon power-up more so functions like Super Mario Galaxy 2's inflatable Yoshi, but still not quite the same. In Mario Galaxy 2, Yoshi eats this fruit to become Blue Yoshi, where he inflates and blows air out of his mouth downwards to ascend. He will keep Mario rising until his air meter runs out, and then he turns back into Green Yoshi. In Astrobot, you actually just rise a set vertical distance with no further option to gain more height. Then Astro fully deflates and falls back to his normal form. So there's differences here in how the mechanics operate, but they're essentially the same idea. This item also serves more uses in later levels, like inflating deflated objects to platform on, pop these blowfish enemies, and fire these air rockets. Jumping into the second level is an ice cream themed winter level, and so we have an environment with ice. So of course Astrobot is gonna ice skate to move around just like Mario in Galaxy. But to add on to our Mario Galaxy thievery, we see this ladybug enemy here. If we punch this enemy, it flips over on its back and becomes a literal trampoline. This enemy is literally just a combination of the Mandibug and the Spring Topman enemies in Galaxy.
Nathan, can you please explain to the class how these two images are the exact same thing?
Is that a trick question? They look pretty different to me.
Get out of my class.
But as a matter of fact, Crash Bandicoot did this way before Mario Galaxy back in 1996, with these turtle enemies on the High Road level. So who's really stealing from who here? Other than that, there was some general environment stuff like icebox that break out from under you after you jump on them, and snow that leaves a path behind you when you walk through it, which are tropes that are generally found in a lot of snow levels in video games, but it's always a nice touch. I found our first secret exit here, which takes us to the Lost Galaxy. But hang on a minute. It might be a stretch, but does this cutscene not give you secret level and Sunshine vibes where Shadow Mario takes Flood? The secret exit brought me to this fungal cave level. There's a section here that uses motion controls to tilt platforms to guide water downwards, cleaning paint from these enemies, which, by the way, kinda remind me of Galaxy's Octoombas. So again, lots of Galaxy similarities, but it makes a lot of sense when you're dealing with motion control type puzzles from the Wii Remote era of Nintendo. Hopping back into the hub world for a quick second, PS5 picks itself out of the sand and slams down, removing the sand dune. All of the robots we've collected so far jump out of the controller ship, and we also get this sort of Banjo-Kazooie-esque puzzle piece sequence, revealing a half-completed puzzle of the Gacha Lab. But with not much to do here yet still, I went back into space. Now, we're not going to talk about every level unless I spot more Nintendo references, but I will touch on levels that I thought were genuinely really well designed. The third level in the first world brings us to our second item that Astro uses, these spring-loaded frog boxing gloves. First of all, let's not beat around the bush here. It's just ARMS. If you don't know what ARMS is, it was a 1v1 boxing game made by Nintendo where literally all the characters throw punches using spring arms, aka exactly what Astro is doing right here. But then, even when the punches aren't being used, the gloves are useful in other ways, like pulling this wall out or swinging on these red paint roller things. But those features operate exactly like how Yoshi's tongue does in Galaxy 2. Like, come on now, this one for me isn't even a stretch. It's all yoink, no twist. The mechanics function exactly the same as its comparisons. But to be honest, I love it. This item functions amazingly and is multi-purpose, not only letting you punch everything in sight, but also opening up new paths by pulling out walls and aiding in traversal with the swings, all in one item. It's amazing design, honestly. It feels like what a good Zelda item should feel like to use. I get the same useful feeling from this as I do from the hookshot in Link to the Past. The hookshot was not only used to pull yourself across gaps to targets, but it was also used to grab items and stun enemies as well. The frog boxing gloves have that same multi-purpose factor that excites the player. It's one item that is more helpful when used creatively, instead of the developers limiting it to its one obvious use. And it's even used in one more way by Astro making himself into a slingshot to shoot across the gap. So creative and so satisfying to wield. And to finish off this level as well, they put you in the ring versus a bunch of Matryoshka dolls in a final showdown. Just the perfect finale to round out a really great level. The next item we gotta talk about is this armadillo ball. I mean, it's just Galaxy Star Ball levels, just minus the motion controls. Then this level here takes place on the tops of skyscrapers with construction sites on them. Some minor New Donk City vibes here, but not really. We get an item that puts a rocket bulldog on our back. By pressing right trigger, Astro gets a burst of horizontal movement that can break through lots of objects with the bulldog logo on it, but also it allows us to clear larger gaps that the laser boots wouldn't be able to clear themselves. I think we could chalk this one up to a combination of the turbo nozzle and the rocket nozzle from Sunshine, but I also think that comparison is definitely more of a stretch, so we're just gonna let this one slide. They do throw these bell enemies in here, which are essentially just killable copies of these Death Ring laser things from Galaxy. Definitely not letting that one slide. This level gives you a pretty fun environment to platform through, crashing through glass and flying down slides, even adding trampolines with bulldog symbols on them that will change the trajectory of your flight path. And then I fought the boss of World 1, which was this big gorilla guy who I punched in the eyes and then bulldog dashed his throat to defeat him. It's pretty standard stuff for a platforming boss battle. Just dodge attacks until he gives you the opening, then attack. Bashing into the bells knocks him out for long enough to attack his eyes, and then knocking all his teeth out opens up the opportunity to bash into his throat, defeating him for good. Jumping into World 2, the next item I found was this monkey backpack, which lets me use motion controls and the triggers to climb up these holds on the wall. But I can also use it to throw rocks and break stuff, opening up new areas to explore. I can't seem to think of anything to compare this to from Nintendo IPs without it being a total stretch. This one might actually be full unique. The level ends with a fight against this giant skeleton robot, Captain Pincher. To fight him, we need to climb up his body to reach his head, where we pull it off and kill him, revealing the finish. Pretty brutal, to be honest, jeez. But overall, a pretty fun beach/pirate themed level with a unique item. Jumping back into space, Worlds 2 through 5 had these unique challenge run type levels that turn the face buttons into characters that I guess hosted the levels or something. They're basically linear, no checkpoint platforming tests that are suspended over infinite space and feel very Galaxy-like in its design. But also it could be more akin to something like Mario 3D World's linear levels too. Another secret exit in the pirate level takes us to this graveyard theme level, where we use this light bulb pickup to reveal invisible ghost platforms, which Mario has done in the past, but this is another one of those tropes that most platformers will experiment with. But what this level does have are these pesky troublemaker ghosts who will mess with you throughout these themed levels. And the only thing that comes to mind when thinking about these ghosts is Luigi's Mansion. I mean, come on guys, they're ghosts with troll personalities that are defeated by throwing light bulbs at them. It's one vacuum and one Italian little brother away from being a ghost hunting adventure. Back into World 2, we have quite possibly my favorite level in the game. This level gives you a new item that is a mouse backpack that makes Astro tiny when used. Maybe some mini mushroom inspirations here, but I do not care. Going tiny changes your perspective so much and lets you explore those hard to reach places, and visually it looks stunning. The camera zooms in to make Astro pretty much the same size as he was before on your screen, which makes the world feel humongous, with the grass petals, the animals, and the level design now being massive. The game also adds a blur effect to objects in the distance, which adds to the visual effect of everything being huge. I love this gimmick so much. It impressed me a lot with how they designed the level around this item. Even the sounds coming from the controller and the vibrations of footsteps from enemies became so much louder and fiercer when you're tiny. It really works incredibly well when it's all put together. A spilled bushel of apples when big becomes a sea of obstacles to push through when tiny. A little water spout becomes your elevator upwards. A clothing line with drying laundry becomes a tightrope. Decorations on the wall of an apartment become a playground to jump up towards the AC unit to grab a collectible. And even at the very end of a level is a tick-tock clock reference to Mario 64, where you platform up the inside of a clock to reach the top of the level. So creative and so pleasing on all the senses. I don't know why, but I love this level the most. Alright, this one's just a ripoff of the Great Deku Tree. I mean, you even go inside them just like an ocarina. But inside the Great Deku Tree, we get another new item that is an elephant backpack. It lets us suck up materials and then spawn platforms underneath Astro to help us clear large gaps. This level primarily uses green goo to spawn leaf platforms, but later on we will get honey platforms that are bouncy. In later levels too, we see concrete platforms that are, well, just normal platforms again, and ice platforms that spawn a long runway with a ramp at the end. It's a really useful and cool item that is pretty much just the cloud power-up from Galaxy 2, but it's got more alterations than just your standard cloud platform.
But actually, Mario's cloud platforms can move with the wind. Can Astrobot's platforms do that?
Well, actually, they can. Wait, who let you back in here? Get the fuck out of my class.
I think a lot of people would have this up there as their favorite level, and if not, it's at least one of the most memorable levels in the game. The giant tree guy swallowing you, the cool elephant item, the climb into the clouds paired with the funky music, the beehive giving you honey platforms, and then to wrap it all up, a boss fight versus this tower of hatchlings where you literally suck their egg yolk brains out to kill them. Definitely another contender for best level in the game. This level had these worm enemies, and I feel like their faces look just like Galaxy's Octumba and Octoguys. Or even like Octoroks from Zelda. Like, am I tripping or are these the same? All of the robot enemies in Astrobot feel like they're ripped straight out of Galaxy. Let me know if you feel the same way in the comments below, or if I'm just going crazy. Later on in this level, we get swallowed by a giant worm and have to platform inside its guts while toxic sludge rises from below. Another common trope of platformers, combined with some kind of Jabu Jabu reference going on here. I can't be sure on this one to be honest, but I'm just calling it how I see it. Then we fight this giant octopus in a fight that involves dodging a lot and then using the froggy boxing gloves to break off his boxing gloves and goggles until eventually he goes Moses mode and parts the damn sea, where we platform over him and turn him into a firework to kill him. World 3's first level has this casino sort of theme that reminds me a lot of the Bowser World in Super Mario 3D World, but inside this level actually contains a pretty unique item. It's a stopwatch backpack that actually slows down time for a short period. There's a lot of fast-moving objects in this level. For example, right off the bat here, there's this traffic flying across this path. So by slowing down time, it makes Astro be able to navigate the level properly by slowing everything down around him. The only thing I could possibly compare this to is the stasis ability from Breath of the Wild, or just any bullet time mechanic, except you're able to fully control Astro at full speed while the whole world slows down. So I can't really think of anything that is exactly the same. Pair this mechanic with falling poker chips, flying darts, and rapid fireball shooting enemies that all need to be slowed down to maneuver, and you've got a pretty awesome casino level. Another new item Astro can wield transforms him into a sponge. In this Japanese mountain hot spring bathhouse level, Astro can suck up water to become a giant saturated sponge, and then spit out all the water onto things like fire, paint enemies, and sponge platforms to help him traverse the level. Such a creative item that I can't seem to find a similar mechanic to other than basic water mechanics like in Super Mario Sunshine. But it's in sponge form? Now that's new tech. And to be honest, Big Sponge Astro reminds me of Giant Gingy from Shrek 2, but that's neither here nor there. Giant Sponge Astro combined with the bathhouse theme really won me over here with this level. We've got a volcano with a face on it. I mean, that's like straight out of Mario Kart. Wait, ain't that a Mario Party minigame?
No, like I'm serious. It's a combination of Long Claw the Law from Mario Party 4 and Booting Gallery from Mario Party 8.
Okay, really? Chicken backpack? That is straight up the rocket nozzle. And then we get into the snake boss, which was actually pretty cool. All the bosses in this game are unique in how they attack, but they all entail just pretty much dodging a bunch until they reveal their weakness and then attack it till they die. But the snake had me on a pillar arena that kept getting smaller. When she slithers across the arena, I had to shatter her scales to weaken her and then chicken boost into the gem on her chin. Then, chicken boost while grabbing her tongue, and eventually we break through the ceiling and end up riding the snake down a big hill. While dodging her attacks, we run along her body towards her head, where we hit the chin gem one more time to finally defeat the boss. Which brings us into World 4, where we find another new item. It gives Astro the ability to become a cannonball or something? This ability lets us go into ball mode. Like Metroid, we're now able to crawl through small tunnels. But also, we're now invincible when rolling over spikes, launchable out of these volcanoes, and can also destroy boxes and use these trampolines with our increased weight.
It's like if Metroid's ball mode combined with Iron Boots from Zelda.
This level ends with a big slide down this desert temple chute, and then into a treasure room where a perfect example of the sheer amount of individual physics-based objects that this game can handle is on display. Look at all these gems just pouring into the room and not a single frame is dropped. It's remarkable. Taking the secret exit brings us to this level, which is pretty much just a direct ripoff of Freeze Flame Galaxy.
I mean, they both have ice and fire elements. There's no way it wasn't stolen from Nintendo.
I'm not seeing it.
Get out.
Okay, this level was awesome. Something about a tropical themed underwater environment really makes me feel at ease. There's a new item in this level, the Penguin Backpack. It essentially operates as a controllable Mario Galaxy shell, where it allows you to swim like a torpedo with great speed. Except with the Penguin, you can turn it on and off whenever. It also has a unique quirk of letting us use HM Waterfall to traverse up this river here. The actual level itself is extremely reminiscent of the Lake Kingdom from Mario Odyssey. It's just this underwater ecosystem operating in this bowl of water with ruins, underwater pockets of air, and hidden nooks and crannies to swim around and explore. The level is structured around freeing our chained up starfish friend. It's a super cool step away from the linear level design that most of Astrobot has, and you kinda just get to explore this underwater environment. Which makes even more sense if it was actually inspired by the Lake Kingdom, as Mario Odyssey has a non-linear level design. Then we get Astrobot's take on a Gusty Garden Galaxy level, which, to be honest, they did it pretty well. And now we arrive at the Iguana boss, who was the most annoying boss in the game. I think I was starting to get a bit sloppy with my gameplay here, but this boss utilized the time slowing ability, which for some reason, I decided to just refuse to use it a lot. The fight involves a lot of time slowing to dodge all the attacks and then stopping time when the iguana launches his tongue at you so you can walk into his mouth and punch his uvula. Then he will retreat to another platform where you need to slow down time and platform to the next arena across these slowed down saw blades. He'll start launching missiles that crumble the arena below you, so you kinda wanna bait him into firing all the missiles on one side of the arena so that you have plenty of room to dodge attacks on the other side. The issue was, when he kept retreating to the next arena, I would mistime my time slowing on these discs that he shoots at you to kill you. And getting sent back to the beginning of this fight was annoying, due to how long the battle is because of all the time stopping. It took a bunch of tries and was definitely the most annoying fight in the game. Heading into World 5, this level was an absolute banger. I don't know if this town is inspired by the Sand Kingdom's little town in Odyssey, or just the movie Aladdin, but what starts in a peaceful desert town ends in a giant sand tornado after rubbing the lamp and releasing this genie mini-boss. Using the Bulldog backpack, you need to platform upwards around the spinning objects in the tornado until you reach the top and fight the genie, bottling him back up and completing the level. We got some Freezy Easy Peak vibes going on here with this giant snowman dude. And in this level, I found our last secret exit in the game. And after completing all of the Lost Galaxy levels, we get a secret bonus level that introduces our last new item in the game, the Symbol Monkey Backpack. This item basically acts as Mario's spin attack in Galaxy in the sense that this level reacts to the crashing of the symbols, just like how the red and blue platforms flip when Mario spins. By pressing both triggers at the same time, the monkey on your back will crash the symbols together, creating an area of effect around Astro that will change the red and blue platforms in the level if in range. This creates a unique party-themed level that is fully controllable with the crashing of the symbols on your back. It's sort of another borrowed idea from Galaxy, but I love mechanics like this because when you're going fast, it forces you to make decisions and inputs between jumps, which adds for some super fast and dynamic gameplay. Not to say that this level forces you to go fast, but this was actually the level I grinded it out for extra coins for the Gacha Lab, so I was essentially speedrunning it over and over to collect coins as fast as possible, so I got pretty good at using the Symbol Monkey. Also, as an extra little note, this level gives me Bandland vibes from the original Rayman, just more happy and less scary. Sun Moon level, Mario Party 6, I mean, it's the whole theme of the entire game. The day and night buttons change the lighting and the orientation of the level, simple stuff. Which brings us to the boss fight for World 5 against this giant bird. This fight is pretty sweet because it happens in the air on the bird's body while he's flying, like the sandbird, if it was a flying giant robot bird instead. Your goal is to use the cannonball item to stun the bird and block attacks before smashing its wings to flip it onto its back. Then you can climb onto the back of the bird's head and smash his helmet with your cannonball. Doing this will break the bird's helmet, where you can now attack this protrusion on its head, sending it crashing out of the sky. And before we get to the final boss, looking through the whole game, I definitely found a lot of things you could compare to other Nintendo IPs riddled throughout Astrobot. But there's also a lot of unique aspects to this game that I either couldn't find a comparison, stretched to find a comparison, or just simply left out of the video. And one thing I purposely haven't mentioned yet is what happens after you defeated each of the world bosses. You see, after defeating Gorilla Guy, I rescued a robot based off of Spike from Ape Escape, who took me to a brand new final level to finish off World 1. Each boss has a robot to save that is the main character from one of Sony's major IPs, who all have their own final world level to go play. I think these final levels were my favorite part of Astrobot as a whole, that served as the most unique gameplay in the entire game. Like I said, the levels are themed after the characters you save, so for this one, Spike lended me his net, and I ran around chasing 10 ape robots with the net for a while. The items the robots give you are specific to Sony IP, so there's little to no thievery going on here, and the levels are genuinely a lot of fun because they're loaded with references, music, and theming from the original game they represent. After this Planet of the Apes reference and a battle with Spectre from Ape Escape, I officially completed World 1. World 2 has a God of War themed level, where you wield Kratos' Frost Axe, throwing it around to defeat enemies and freeze water into platforms you can jump on. You traverse all throughout a snowy landscape fighting reskin enemies in Nordic gear and saving other robots themed after other God of War characters. Then you enter a final showdown where Astro, so long gay Bowser's, a giant Titanus pig into a wall of ice, completing World 2. World 3 is based off Uncharted, where the Nathan Drake robot lends you his toy pistol and you have to platform through the jungle shooting enemies and swinging on vines until you reach the Turtle Temple, where you must collect the treasure and escape from the ghostly temple demon. World 4 has a Loco Roco level, where Astro is transformed into a blob that uses tilt controls to roll your character throughout the level. And finally, World 5 takes place in a Horizon-themed level, where Aloy gives you her bow to use. The level is filled with robot dinosaurs and a final fight against a robot T-Rex, who also happens to be the final boss from Astro's Playroom. And all 5 of these levels result in Astro recovering a key component missing from our broken PS5 in the hub world. 4 of which were the levels in Astro's Playroom, and the 5th being the outer white casing for the PS5. After collecting each PS5 part, Astro takes the part back to the hub world, where another unique experience takes place. You get to use motion controls to manually reinstall the parts back into the PS5 mothership.
Oh boy!
Okay, I guess it does kind of sound lame when it's just me saying it. But this little sequence bombards you with great haptic feedback and sounds from the controller that make the cartoony and unrealistic reinstallation a satisfying process that receives a big cheer from your robot family when completed. It also really gives you a sense of progress, you know? Like, now you're motivated to collect all 5 ship parts in order to challenge the final boss. And that's not even where the unique stuff ends. Woven in between all the general platforming tropes and Nintendo comparisons are unique items like the monkey climbing backpack, enemies like Captain Pincher, and characters like Big Brother Robot, who appears from time to time throughout the levels. But after all this evidence, all the comparisons, all the hearsay, if you ask me the question of whether or not Astrobot stole from Nintendo, then my definitive final answer would surely have to be, yeah, probably. But who cares if they yoinked, borrowed, or simply took inspiration from Nintendo? However you want to word it, that's the nature of art. Everyone takes ideas from past works and enhances it to make it their own. So it doesn't matter if Astrobot is forever considered Super Mario Galaxy 3. Honestly, I think that's an extremely flattering compliment for Team Asobi to receive. Just be thankful they made such a fun, well-polished experience for us all to enjoy. But there's still one thing left to talk about, and that's the final fight versus Big Green Alien Guy. With all of our robot friends on board, Astro pilots the fully built PS5 into space to go chase down our stolen CPU and fight this jerk. So in space and on the chase, the PS5 releases a fleet of PlayStation hardware that all of our robot friends pilot while we ride our DualSense controller. The entire fleet launches into a massive space assault. We're thrown into a Star Wars / Galaga / the obvious Nintendo comparison Star Fox kind of scene, where we're using motion controls to dodge obstacles and shoot bullets, killing little alien minions who are flying around attacking our PlayStation comrades. One by one, we combine forces with allies who wield PlayStation hardware from every single console era, from the PS1 to the PS2 to the PS3 and the PS4, until finally we reach the giant alien villain. Using the PS5 as a platform arena for the final battle, the alien starts the battle by pulling up his UFO to reveal a spinning wheel with a lot of the items that we've wielded throughout the game. It sort of reminded me of the Casino Boo fight in Sunshine, but with a completely different twist. Astro throws an orb to stop the wheel, and the item it lands on becomes the item we get to utilize to dodge the alien's onslaught of attacks, until we have the opportunity to attack him. And the octopus backpack leads to the alien pulling out a giant fish laser rocket launcher that shoots barriers that we must rapidly inflate and deflate to dodge. After some evasion, his gun gets jammed and we inflate this rocket to shoot at him and then have the opportunity to jump onto his UFO and smash his fingers away from blocking the locks that hold the CPU trapped in the UFO. After breaking the lock, he sends us back to the PS5 platform. The Bulldog backpack was honestly the most difficult attack to dodge. He pulls out a sword and then just goes to town smashing it at you, and for some reason I could not get away from the slashes and ended up dying. But the second attempt, luckily I didn't get the Bulldog backpack again. Instead, I got the magnet, which wasn't really a wearable item in this game, but was a mechanic where Astro would attract a bunch of metal to the magnet into a giant ball, and then launch the ball at something to break it. And so, the alien brought out a pirate skull cannon, and started to shoot a bunch of cannonballs at me. The cannonballs would break, leaving metal scrap on the ground that the magnet would accumulate, and then once I had a nice giant scrap ball, I launched it at the alien and then climbed on the UFO, breaking one of the locks. Next, I rolled the froggy boxing gloves, which prompted the alien to bring out a hammer. He would smash it on the PS5, spawning death rings, but after a couple of hits, he got tired and I could punch the metal off one side of the hammer. After another sequence of this, the hammer's casing was completely off, and I was able to stick the boxing gloves to the sticky eyes on the hammer and send the hammer flying back into the alien's face and break another lock. On my next roll, I actually did get the bulldog backpack, but luckily the alien with some trickery switched it to the monkey backpack. The alien whipped out dual Berettas and started shooting a bunch of small bullets onto the PS5. After dodging them for a while, I realized some of the bullets remained on the PS5, and with the monkey backpack, I started picking up the bullets and throwing them at the alien's face. After launching almost 10 bullets back at the alien, his visor finally broke and I destroyed the last block, freeing the CPU. With that, the alien's ship was weakened and he drifted away as the CPU reinstalled itself back into the PS5. But before the celebrations could take place, the alien picked himself back up and began to attack again. But Astro summoned the DualSense controller as a mounted machine gun on the PS5 and began shooting the alien as he threw random objects at him. Fighting back the barrage, we stun the alien and begin to shoot at the engine of his UFO. The engine explodes, causing a black hole that is sucking the alien away. But in one last act of desperation, the alien grabs Astro to take him down with him. The robots we saved throughout the game band together to make a giant pyramid to save Astro, but Astro, in an effort to save all his comrades, sacrifices himself for his robot friends by voluntarily letting go. The alien and Astro go sailing into the black hole where it implodes, leaving all the robots watching on the PS5 as the credits roll. I'm just kidding. It doesn't end like that. It's a pretty nice troll here though, but like this is dark. The robots are all crying as this like sinister music plays and the logo starts scrolling up the screen until finally a robot starts pointing upwards and alerting the other robots. The credits get sucked away and a blink in space results in Astro's beaten up body being crashed back down onto the PS5 where he gives one final salute and collapses with his arms falling off and everything. But then the goofy PS5 fixing arms come out and it's time to rebuild Astro. Astro, wake up buddy, wake up, wake up! After shaking Astro's lifeless body, the other robots start offering up spare arms and legs for Astro, until finally the CPU offers up a spare heart, and with that, Astro is revived. And then we get a playable credit sequence, where we use all our items and platform across memory cards, and all is happy in the PS5 space colony. Then there's an actual credit sequence that functions like Pikmin's credits, where they show the names of all the enemies in the game. Then, of course, the Grandmaster Galaxy Final Trial or whatever, but honestly, it was really easy, and it just rewards you with a paint job for the controller ship, a retro polygon outfit for Astro, and the Onion Master robot. And that was all that Astrobot had in store for us. Nintendo thievery or not, it's still an extremely well-made platformer that I would recommend anyone to play. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video or enjoyed the Astrobot game, leave a like and subscribe. If you're a Nintendo fanboy and didn't enjoy me dunking on your favorite video game company, remember that this was all a joke and I didn't mean it.